isn't forever. It doesn't mean I'll give up whenever. And when I go in one direction, this open flow simply craves connection. Yeah, yeah. I want you to know I wanna be by your side, but baby, I gotta go. And when I say what's clever is clever, it doesn't mean I'll never say never.
Hey y'all.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Ship Life.
Ship happens.
So to wrap up this episode, we'd like to answer some questions from the folks that were curious about what we do in terms of trying to help out the environment on the ship.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's start with, was it Claire's question regarding recycling and food waste?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so Claire, shout out to Claire.
What up, Claire?
Love you. I just asked about the sheer enormity of volume of how much food and waste we have with. So there's 1,300 crew members, and then there's, what would you say, 4 to 4,800 at capacity for guests.
Yes. We could have a grand total of over 6,000 on the ship between crew and guests. Doesn't have to be that high if it's not a sellout cruise. After the holidays, I think the numbers get a little bit lower. But even still, it's a lot of people to account for food waste, among other things. So recycling-wise, what are some of the things that we do?
So they do take recycling very seriously here, which is fantastic. They have different categories, so it's all color-coded for which materials are going to which facility, because it's all coordinated for where, basically, especially if it's hazardous or not, they have facilities that they have to legally take these substances to and have them dispose of it. So red is food, food only.
Yeah.
Yellow is glass only. We've got blue, which is aluminum and cans. And gray, which is plastic and paper and anything that you'd write on.
Yeah.
Things like that. And white is broken chinaware.
It's got its own category.
It does.
You'd be shocked at how often plates and things get broken, so it does need its own proper place to be disposed of.
Yeah, exactly. And then beyond that, there's a clip of it in this video, but there's our little trio of boxes that they have at various places in the hallways where we take our razors and our batteries. And what's the third one?
I don't know. Those are the two that I remember.
I know.
Something else that was...
Clearly it's something we'll never use. Well, it's in the video, so you guys can tell.
Yes.
I forget. I only ever look at batteries and razors.
I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta remember to grab those batteries and toss them in there.
And then as far as food waste goes, every time there's a very short clip of it in this episode because it's a really awkward place to like stand and take a video in the galley when you're cleaning your plates off after every meal in crew mess. But they do separate, well, we have to separate it ourselves, but there's hard food and soft food. So there's just two big gray or multiple gray messy tubs of food waste that we all slide it off our plates and send it into at the end of our meal. And then what do they do with it at the end? We were just talking about that.
They run it through a grinder. So there's two separate bins. There's, like she said, the soft food, which has one type of grinder to break down the food into its like smallest slimy liquid form, and then there's another one for the hard foods that has probably, I would assume, a more intense way of breaking down the hard foods like bones and stuff.
Yeah.
So basically they just like break it down as small as it can possibly be, and then what do they do with it?
Then what do they do with it?
Does it go out in the ship waste? I don't know if it gets mixed with like when they do release it, I think.
Oh, I found it. So we have our manual. This is like the most exciting section of our manual too. This is the only section I really wanted to read. That and our social media policy. So food waste is the first classification. So there are 4 different waste classifications that we have here. One is like the tamest, chillest classification. It's non-hazardous solid waste. So it looks like all food goes under that classification. Okay. So I'll just read these because it's kind of cool.
Does it go with the water then?
Yeah, I guess not.
Okay.
So waste classification number 1 is non-hazardous solid waste as defined by any discarded material. So it's regular solid waste, food waste, empty paint cans, some plastic containers, aerosol filters, empty aerosol cans, which is kind of interesting. Some of the other stuff, classification number 2 is hazardous waste, corrosive, flammable, toxic, or reacts with some other kind of material. Photo liquid waste, which I never even thought about, but they probably have a ton of that because we have a whole photography department that sets up every night. So they probably have a lot of that.
They take a lot of pictures.
Non-water based paint, unused corrosive cleaners. What's an effluent? I always think of affluent.
Certain effluents.
So just something that's fluid.
Generated during cleaning operations.
Maybe
That's a word.
like cleaning waste.
I like it. I'll go with that.
Yeah. And then, so batteries are class 3. So 3 and 4 are the ones that are like super regulated, where they have to go to specific facilities when we get back to land. Batteries, pesticides, mercury-containing compounds, such as thermometers and fluorescent lamps. And then 4 is the one that we got the most training on.
Yeah.
I would say when we first got to the ship. Biomedical waste. So this kind of ties into our second question, which was about wastewater and where it goes and what kinds are there and what happens to it all.
That was for my mom.
It was.
Hi, Mom.
Good question, because you dialed into what they really wanted to tell us on day 1.
True.
Which is that what I remember from our training too is that there's gray water, bilge water, and black water. Those were my main takeaways.
I think if you've ever camped before, you'll know what 2 of those 3 are.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think it's the same thing.
I think so.
So the black water is toilet water, basically.
Yeah.
And then the gray water's whatever's going from the sinks and the showers.
Yeah. I can't remember if they put shower water as black water here.
No.
It doesn't say. Probably not, though. I think black water is like
Straight
the
up
gross
toilet.
stuff. Oh, and like biomedical. Anything from the medical center
Right.
is black water. And then bilge water is a fun new ship life thing that we learn about now, which it's basically just oily excretions from the ship, which there's a lot. So our first training day, we learned all the specifics of the numbers of where. Do you remember any of the numbers itself?
No.
I don't either.
I don't.
So basically we learned how many nautical miles away from land we had to be per classification and how many parts per million the substance could be.
Right.
So, and how fast, how many knots we had to be traveling.
Our speed and our distance from land was very important for the release of these substances to be expunged into the water.
Yeah, that's the other thing, that there's a lot of footage of like our signs and stuff around the ship, but Marpol and Oceans Alive are like there's environmental cops. We basically have cops, which is awesome. And I'm so glad that they care, but they take it very, very seriously. So essentially we're allowed to let out a little waste stream at a certain speed.
Yeah.
And as long as we're traveling, I assume it's just to dissipate the waste
So it's
enough
not
for it to be
concentrated
going
on the
fast
same
enough.
spot.
And it won't travel back to shore and
Yep.
harmony. Cute little animals and creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's we could do like a half an hour episode
That's true.
on this, but we hope to try to sum it up essentially in that they care a lot. We're grateful that they care a lot. And then Pal's question, there's definitely some dinner footage in this episode, but very gratefully, not a lot of plastic usage.
Yeah, Pal's question was, what do they use for utensils? So do they use like proper cutlery, or is there plasticware?
Yeah, because I know like Amtrak just got rid of all of their cutlery.
Do they really?
Yeah, they're
That's
like
amazing.
going they're going towards plastic and like disposable. I know.
Sorry. Yeah.
It's sad. I wish, because they used to have its funding, and
Right.
I'm sure they have less resources than we do to like wash things,
Right.
Because it's smaller. But yeah, we're the complete opposite. We have all cloth napkins and real silverware and real plates and real glasses, and then it's also in this episode. But our first day when we went to the bar, our eyes got big and our mouths got dropped, and it said, "Skip the straw."
Skip the straw.
Which was like the last thing I expected to see.
I think that it's more of like a crew-wide thing that they try to enforce, though, because they do still give you straws
They
in the
do.
guest areas for beverages, which I think they could do better. But
Yeah,
it's
agreed.
shocking how many people just still like can't fathom not having a straw. And even in the crew areas, I've seen, and I've given a lot of shit to, a
Particularly
handful.
past 2 a.m.
Yeah, some crew folk, they get their foo-foo beverages and they're handed it without a straw, and they go, "Oh, can I get a straw, please?" And I'm like, what? And
I think you converted some people.
I did. I shamed them, but gracefully, with a hint of, what about the turtles? And they looked at me like, it doesn't taste the same.
Which I actually hadn't read one of the straw signs in detail, but they have a whole paragraph's argument of like, you actually taste it better if you don't use a straw, because like your nose doesn't get close enough
Oh, yeah.
to what you're tasting.
Right.
So like you're actually reducing your experience, which is a great like social argument we can start working in, because that is
Yeah.
always what it's like, well, it's not the same. It's like, actually, you can have a better experience. I also wonder too, so on our Instagram, we posted yesterday about our discoveries of the Caribbean being like the leading region in getting rid of single-use plastics and styrofoam, which is amazing.
I had no idea.
I didn't either. It's so cool. So I wonder if Carnival's gonna maybe step up their guest service
I hope
program
so. I mean,
with that.
They make straws that aren't made of plastic, so it's entirely possible.
Yeah.
It's just probably like a budget thing and trying
Yeah.
to like find the funds to do that. But
That's what we got yesterday. I think they were bamboo. Right?
yeah.
Yeah. I was
great.
amazed. They're better. You could chew on them a little bit. Like, they don't taste like plastic. There's just like so many reasons.
Maybe no BPA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully that'll be phase 2. But Carnival's done a lot, and it's been really nice to like have a corporate environment that reinforces all of our obnoxious tendencies towards
Yeah.
caring a lot about these things. That's been really cool. So that's why we wanted to take an extra week and talk about it and get some more footage and do a little more research, honestly, and we discovered some really awesome stuff. So it's cool to be basically living in the Caribbean while
Right.
you're going through this epic cultural shift of like now to April.
It's
basically.
a big time this year
It is.
for this area.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, that's all I got.
Sweet.
Thanks for tuning in.
We'll see you on next week's episode of Ship Lappins. Ship Lappins.
Ship Lappins.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye.